All right. So this morning we're looking at the second reading from the Three Kingdoms, and I'm just going to go through. I'm not going to give the answers, so to speak. For the most part, I'm more going to put food for thought out there. Kind of present some of the questions that I want you guys to just discuss after you watch the video. Discuss there, under the video. So, talking about the second reading that we've done for the Three Kingdoms. At the beginning, Cao Cao suggests in a letter to Sun Quan, and Sun Quan is one of the southern kings. So basically, Liu Bei, we know Liu Bei is in trouble, right? Cao Cao is after him, and Liu Bei is hoping that Sun Quan, who is another southern king, will help him. And Cao Cao wants to head this off, He's the strategist. He's like, I've got to get Sun Quan on my side so he doesn't go over and help Liu Bei. And so he sends a letter to Sun Quan asking him if he wants to go on a hunting expedition, right? And of course, what is that hunting expedition? Are they going after a tiger together? No, they're going after Liu Bei. So it's an interesting little expression that he uses there. So Sun Quan, who is one of the southern kings, he gets a letter. He gets Cao Cao's letter, and he's trying to decide. Do I fight, or do I make peace? Or do I go over to his side, to Cao Cao's side, right? And he's got this trusted advisor whose name is Lu Su. And so Sun Quan asked his trusted servant, what should I do? Because actually all of Sun Quan's other advisors are advising him to suck up to Cao Cao. Yes, give him a positive answer to his letter, right? And so Sun Quan, all of his servants, his eunuchs, and servants and eunuchs are bad in this story, They're the ones that ruined the government in the first place so that the Yellow Scarves have an uprising. It's the eunuchs' fault. The eunuchs controlling a weak emperor. So again, here you have evil eunuchs, evil advisors trying to guide a emperor who's not a king who's not the strongest, Sun Quan, right? And so he asked Lu Su, his trusted servant, his most trusted advisor, what should I do? And Lu Su tells him basically that the advisors, they may be telling him, suck up to Cao Cao, go along with him, make peace. But he's like, the advisors, they can always just go be an advisor to Cao Cao. They got a job either way. But what are you as a ruler giving up if you join Cao Cao? He's like, the advisors are just telling you to do what's best for them. But what is best for you and for your kingdom? Because you might end up losing your kingdom if you side with Cao Cao, right? So it's like the different perspectives there, right? What are the advisors' hidden motives? Then we get Zhuge Liang's epithets, and I'll leave that to you guys. Somebody bring that up, but his epithet, and what does it mean? What does this say about Zhuge Liang? His epithet. So don't forget to discuss that. Okay. So Zhuge Liang arrives. Zhuge Liang is Liu Bei's top advisor, and Zhuge Liang is sent by Liu Bei to Sun Quan to try and convince Sun Quan to help Liu Bei fight Cao Cao, right? So Zhuge Liang shows up on the scene. Zhuge Liang is a freaking genius, and he's a major figure in Chinese folklore and history. And so Zhuge Liang shows up on the scene, and the different advisors all argue with him because they know he's there to talk Sun Quan into fighting Cao Cao, and they don't want him to. They want Sun Quan to give in to Cao Cao, right? And so they each argue with him, and particularly, and talk about this, Zhuge Liang just outsmarts them all. or choose them out, either outsmarts or choose out each advisor in turn, right? Because he's just so much more wittier than they are and so much smarter. If he can't outthink him, he just out insults him, right? And so particularly his response to Shui Zong is interesting because there's definitely parallels to like an Indian mindset, the kind of mindset you might find in the Mahabharata or in the Ramayana. So talk about that. How is Zhuge Liang's response to Shui Zong? How does that sound Indian? Finally, Zhuge Liang best either insults or outsmarts all of Sun Quan's advisors, and then he actually meets Sun Quan, and they have a conversation. And Sun saying he's trying to convince Sun Quan to fight, to join Liu Bei and fight against Cao Cao. And finally, one thing he does along the way to like clinch it and stir Sun Quan up to fight is he insults Sun Quan in a way that makes Sun Quan so angry that he's gonna fight Cao Cao. Discuss that. What does he say? How does he insult him, right? To get him to want to fight. Zhuge Liang also explains to he also explains to Sun Quan how Cao Cao's army is not really as strong as it looks. And talk about that. Like, what is Zhuge Liang's perspective on this 1,000,000-man army that Cao Cao has, and how does he explain that? How it's not as strong as it looks, this army. What are Zhuge Liang's points there? Okay, so then Zhou Yu shows up on the scene. Zhou Yu is Sun Quan's brother. He's a stronger figure. He's also a craftier person, And all the advisors, in turn, everybody comes to him. The people who are for fighting, the people who are against fighting, they all come to him before he sees Sun Quan. And they're like, Zhou Yu, what do you think? What do you feel? What are you going to encourage your brother to do? And of course, Zhou Yu, he tells them, oh, I totally agree with you. I'm doing that. Oh, I totally agree with you. I'm doing that, right? As they each come in turn. And so what is he doing here? What is he doing this? What's his strategy there? This is all about the art of war. Definitely think art of war as you're reading this and what parallels there are to Sun Tzu's teachings in the art of war. So I kind of screwed up in one of the quiz questions, got the name wrong. But basically, finally, Zhuge Liang comes and he meets Zhou Yu. And when Zhuge Liang comes and meets Zhou Yu, then he insults Zhou Yu too in a way that makes Zhou Yu, that pisses him off and makes him want to fight Cao Cao. So he basically pulls the same tactic with Sun Quan and Zhou Yu. But discuss this too, like how does he insult Zhou Yu? What makes Zhou Yu particularly mad and like clinches that he wants to fight Cao Cao, right? That said, Zhou Yu, he's got an interesting relationship with Sun Quan. With Zhuge Liang. So Zhou Yu and Zhuge Liang, this interesting relationship, because on the one hand, Zhou Yu, I think he knows kind of that he needs Zhuge Liang's smarts to beat Cao Cao. Zhuge Liang's a freaking military genius, right? On the other hand, he's scared of Zhuge Liang because he knows that if they join Liu Bei and fight, then what's to keep Zhuge Liang and Liu Bei from taking over Sun Quan and Zhou Yu's land after they've beaten Cao Cao together, right? And so he's got like he knows Zhuge Liang, he can use Zhuge Liang's smarts, they're important in this battle with Cao Cao, but he's also afraid of Zhuge Liang, and ultimately he wants to kill Zhuge Liang. And he tries several ways throughout the story. So it's crazy, this crazy relationship. But it's interesting, it reminds me of the story of King Saul and David in the Bible, because David, we talked about, was the Israelites' greatest king. King Saul was the Israelites' first king. particularly after the fight that David and Goliath have. David gets a reputation in Israel, among the Hebrews. Everybody's loving him. And suddenly before Saul was like, dude, David, you're awesome. You got this fighting spirit. Now Saul is afraid of it. Because Saul is afraid David may take the throne because he's suddenly so much more popular than Saul is. And he becomes more and more popular because God is with him in the story, with David. And so David is just winning battles and gaining more and more popularity. And so at several points, Saul tries to kill David. But at one point, he actually tries to trick David into getting killed for him. And what he does is, he says, David, you're so great. I think you should marry one of the king's daughters. And David's like, I can never marry one of your daughters. I'm nothing. Look at my family. I'm not royalty. And Saul says, I know you think you're nothing, and that's why I'm going to give you a challenge. And if you accomplish this great challenge, you can marry my daughter, right? And so Saul tells David, the price of your marrying my daughter, the great deed I want you to do, is I want you to go kill 100 Philistines. The Philistines were the enemy. That were Israel's big enemy at this time. He said, I want you to kill 100 Philistines for me. And you yourself. And as proof that you did it, I want you to bring back the skin of their penises, their foreskin, which is nuts. That's a kind of woo, but he says, yeah, bring those skins back to me, 100 of those, and now know that you've done it, you can marry my daughter. And in reality, Saul's like, David can't do this. He can't kill 100 Philistines by himself, and so he thinks this is an easy way to get rid of David. And this so reminds me of Joyu's and Zhuge Liang's relationship, because Saul needs David. On the other hand, he's terrified of it. Except he's more terrified of, except Joyu is more terrified of Zhuge Liang because of his intelligence, his genius brain. We'll come back to that in a little bit. So basically, and I got ahead of myself there, that whole story about David and Saul, this relates to what I'm about to talk about here. Zhuge Liang's like, how do I get rid of Zhou Yu? So he comes up with this great plan to send Zhou Yu on this expedition, with this dangerous expedition, hoping that Zhou Yu will get killed, right? And so he's hoping to send him off, and basically, Zhuge Liang insults Lu Su and Zhou Yu. Again, he insults them both in a way that that makes Zhou Yu all mad, and he's like, I'm going to go on this dangerous expedition myself, and so discuss this, discuss what are Zhuge Liang's exact words. What does he say that's an insult, and why is it an insult? And how does that, ultimately Zhou Yu was hoping Zhuge Liang would die by going on this expedition, and now Zhou Yu is like, I'm going to go on myself, although he doesn't end up going on this expedition. But it's a very similar thing to the Saul-David scenario. Okay. So discuss that. What exactly does Zhuge Liang say to insult Zhou Yu, to make Zhou Yu want to go on this dangerous expedition instead, when the whole point was to get Zhuge Liang killed? Zhou Yu also wants Liu Bei dead. He's like, I want them both dead, And it's like, dude, wait till the battle's over. Zhou Yu's getting paranoid here, It's like, wait till the battle's over. Wait till you defeated Cao Cao. What are you doing? But Zhou Yu and his paranoia, which is definitely King Saul and the Saul and David story, is like he wants Liu Bei dead. So he invites Liu Bei to come to his place for a special, like a little feast, a friendly chat, get to know each other. And he's got him surrounded with men that at Zhou Yu's signal are going to kill Liu Bei. The only problem is Liu Bei shows up with Guan Yu. And Guan Yu is standing beside him, and Guan Yu is so fierce and terrifying that Zhou Yu realizes, even he's about to give the signal to have Liu Bei killed, that Guan Yu is going to kill everybody in the room if they try and kill Liu Bei. So finally, Zhou Yu backs off, and he doesn't give the signal, you know. And in another scene, you know, Cao Cao, his army is they're a land army. They're all foot soldiers, and in order to assault Zhou Yu's army, Cao Cao has got to do it by water. Actually, it's at this place, this area called Red Cliff. It turns out it ends up being called the Battle of Red Cliff, and so it's got to be assaulted by water mainly. And Cao Cao needs help with this, and so he's got these two naval commanders that are helping him because they're sucking up to him because they know how strong he is. So they're helping him, but ultimately, Zhuge Liang and Zhou Yu together come up with this idea to trick Cao Cao into thinking that his naval commanders are actually traitors, so that Cao Cao kills these two naval commanders that he desperately needs to win the battle. And so talk about that. How do Zhuge Liang and Zhou Yu, how do they trick Cao Cao into killing these naval commanders that he needs to win this battle? Okay, and again, as we see there, what I just talked about, Zhou Yu needs Zhuge Liang, but with his paranoia, he keeps trying to kill him. There's another moment where Zhuge Liang is so smart, he gets a bit cocky, and he basically promises to do something that Zhou Yu is like, that's impossible. And so Zhou Yu is like, okay, if you promise to do it, then your penalty when you don't do it, like I know you can't do it, is that I get to execute you. And Zhuge Liang is like, okay, I'm good with that. If I don't pull this off, then you get to execute me. And Zhou Yu's like, I've got him, he's dead. And he's not dead, because Zhuge Liang is a genius, right? So talk about this. What does Zhuge Liang do that Zhou Yu thinks he can't do? And how does he do it? It's genius. Finally, at the end here, there's several short bits of poetry that are scattered throughout these readings from the Three Kingdoms. Discuss with each other, why? Why is this poetry here? What purpose does it serve? And with anything you guys discuss, this is not a question like just go with your own random answer. Listen to each other. Discuss this with each other and think about what is the best answer. What is the best answer? You're in college. We're learning to think deep here, right? Yeah. Okay. So that's the second reading of the Three Kingdoms. Again, make sure that you discuss it here, under the video. And because obviously I left a lot open for discussion because I didn't want to just throw the answers at you. All right, let's move to something else here. At the end, I'm going to do another Shakespeare reading. These readings, make sure that watch these videos. This is the third one. This is the third one that I've done. And we make sure that you are listening to these lectures. These are not, so to speak, optional in the sense that, oh yeah, just listen to it if you want to. No, these things will be on the test in some form. Okay, so listen to the lectures, read over the poems. The link to the poems. The links to the poems are in the class PowerPoint in the Shakespeare slide. And so make sure that you don't just blow these off. Listen, pay attention, think about them. All right, so the lecture for this morning this is called the feast of, this is called the St. Crispin's Day speech. It's from a play called Henry V. And basically, I'm just going to read you part of it, but the introduction to it is Henry V, King of England, has, been insulted somehow by the King of France. And as a result, he's like, I'm going to go attack him. I'm going to go invade France. And it's a stupid reason, as most wars occur because of stupid things, right? And so Henry takes his army over there and starts massacring French people, but he gets too deep in enemy territory. And so on St. Crispin's Day, which is a holiday, that's the day it's happening, the morning of, the English are like, we could get wiped out here, and his men are kind of edgy. Some of them are wanting to run away. Some have already run because they realize they may be about to get wiped out by the French. This is actually, in history, this is known as the Battle of Agincourt. And so one of his nickname is Harry. His nickname is Harry. So King Harry, or Henry V, one of his generals comes up to him and is like, I wish we had more men. And Henry looks at him and he's like, what are you talking about? I don't wish we had more men. I want the honor. If we had more men, I'd have to share the honor with more men. I only want men here who are diehard. I only want the men who want to be here. I don't care if people desert. I don't want to fight with them anyways, And so then, after saying all this, Henry goes on to give this famous speech where he stirs up his men to fight right before they go into battle. So I'll read the speech for you. This day is called the Feast of Crispin. He that outlives this day and comes safe home will stand a tiptoe when this day is named and rouse him at the name of Crispin. He that shall see this day and live to old age will yearly on the vigil feast his neighbors and say, tomorrow is St. Crispin. Then will he strip his sleeve and show his scars and say, these wounds I had on Crispin's day. Old men forget, yet all shall be forgot. But he'll remember with advantages what feats he did that day. Then shall our names, familiar in his mouth as household words, Harry the King, Bedford and Exeter, Warwick and Talbot, Salisbury and Gloucester, be in their flowing cups freshly remembered. This story shall the good man teach his son, and Crispin shall ne'er go by, from this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. Be he ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, whiles any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's Day. So, let's talk about this famous speech a little bit. Of course, he never actually gave the speech. Shakespeare made it up, right? So yeah, he says, this day is called the Feast of Crispin. And he says, if you live today, you may die today. There's a chance a lot of you are going to die today. But he says, whoever fights today and lives will be able to stand up straight in front of any man in England, right? Especially whenever he hears the word Crispin mentioned, the name Crispin, he'll be able to stand up straight and know that he's as good as any man in England, or better, right? He that sees this day and lives to old age, lives to be an old man. Whoever fights today and lives to be an old man, on the eve of St. Crispin, he will tell all of his neighbors, everybody stand and a toast to all the men who fought on that day, right? Then he'll pull back his sleeve and he'll show them all his wounds that he got on Crispin's Day. King Harry, or Henry, right? Harry as he's nicknamed. He says, old men, they forget stuff. But if you fight on this day and you live to tell the tale, you will never forget it. you'll always remember it, right? You'll remember the great things you did on this day. You'll also remember the famous names of your leaders. Harry of England, Harry the King, Bedford, Exeter, like the leader, your leaders in this battle. And everyone will toast. You'll make everybody toast with flowing cups of wine, right? Um, you'll teach this day to your sons. You'll tell them the story of this day. Crispin's Day, that holiday will never go by from this day to the end of the world without being remembered. To the end of time, people will remember what happened on this day and tell this story. And then you've got the famous line, "We few, we happy few, we band of brothers," from which the title of the television series comes, right? Um, he says, whoever sheds their blood with me today will be my brother, you know? Even if you're a bad person, I don't know you. You may be morally, you may be an awful person. But if you fight on this day with me, it will make you a better person. Just for having fought with me on this day, you will be a better person. It will gentle your condition. The gentle knight concept, right? And he says, the guys who are off in England asleep right now in their beds, right? Ever after this day, whenever this day is mentioned, whenever St. Crispin's Day is mentioned, anybody who wasn't here to fight, any man will kind of lower his head and think, dude, I suck, because I wasn't there, because I wasn't in that battle. Whether they just weren't in the battle because they weren't, or whether they ran away from the battle, either way, they'll be like, oh yeah, you're the man, and I kind of suck because I wasn't there, right? So this is the St. Crispin's Day speech. Another just key Shakespeare passage that it's like, it's one of those things that gets brought up in conversations, that gets brought up in film, literature, movies. It's an important passage to know about. All right, you guys, have a good night. Have a good morning. Have a good day. Talk to you later.